Jean and John and I have been reading her journal, and in it she talks about the opportunities in this little Payson town of a carefree childhood. And she talks about being able to go swimming in a little ponds and just hanging your clothes up on a tree, and getting in the water and then getting the clothes on again. And she talks about, Mother talks about the fun memories she had of sleigh riding. Remember? And she said that it was really not Payson's a neat place because it has a lot of hills and you can have a lot of fun sleigh riding. Right, Edith? But one time, and she said, and you didn't have to worry about being hit with a car because there weren't any. And then the only problem was one time she ran into a tree and she was unconscious for 36 hours. So that was a bit dangerous there. Now, when she was in elementary school, World War I was on, and so the military spirit was very high, and she wrote in her journal that every morning they would have to line up just like in a military fashion with their heels together, their toes out, and they would have to march. And if they got out of step, the whole class had to stay after school. And so they really were strict about that. When she was 8.5, the family got running water and an indoor bathroom for the first time, and she was so thrilled about that. But that produced her most embarrassing experience when her younger brother Al had gone to this new bathroom, which was by the front door, and his mother walked out with her boyfriend to go on a date. Al said, "Oh, somebody get me some toilet paper, fast!"
First things first, Merrill.
Then when she was 11, very, very suddenly, she had to face tragedy when her father died because of an accident. And this meant that her mother had to try to run the farm with the help of the children. And there was a 16-year-old brother, Earl, and a daughter just older than mother. And so the whole family would do the farm work, pick tomatoes and thin the beets. And here we have our granddaughter, Liz and Becca, and her husband, Andrew. And in May, Becca is going to have Grandma's first great-grandchild, and our first great-grandchild. Let's find, we have empty places. We have two
Some in
here.
that room over there.
And we've got one here, and two here. And Jean, would you go get them get their order so they can get their order? Okay, we're just talking about Grandma's early life. One of Mother's chores was to take the cows to the pasture. And this old brass bucket here was the bucket that her father would use to milk the cows. And then I remember my father using it when we lived in the same house later.
That's a choice name.
Kind of bucket stood in her house.
Now, when Mother was 15, she was a beehive girl, and there is a picture over here. She looks a lot older than 15, but she had it in her scrapbook that this was when she was a beehive girl, and she put the date 1926, so she would have been 15 that year. And this shows her up at Camp Maple Dale. She went to camp up at Camp Maple Dale in Payson. And when Mother was only 17, her mother became very sick and eventually died. And right while she was sick, Mother wanted to quit school and just help at home. But her mother was so strong on education. She insisted that she stay in school, and she insisted that they all try to go to college. And all of them eventually did, which was really quite remarkable considering their circumstances. So, Mother did graduate from high school, and let's see. Oh, her high school graduation picture is right in here. It's this one right here. So you'll probably want to go around and look at these on the tables. Now, she was very fortunate to be able to go to BYU and get a job in the bookstore. And she had two special experiences while she was at BYU. One is that they started the summer camp up at Aspen Grove. And that picture right there that I'm pointing to, hold that one up, is the first summer school camp. And her boss in the bookstore wanted her to come up and work there too. So she spent a summer that she really enjoyed working there. And then she also spent a summer working up at Mirror Lake. Edith is sitting right by a picture of her at Mirror Lake. Can you hold that up, Edith? It shows her in her overalls up in the mountains. And she just had a wonderful, wonderful experience, and she loves that area. We went up a few years ago, and she hiked all the way around the lake with me. One of her loves was drama, and she was in many, many plays and was well known in Payson for being an actress in the plays. And so when she went to BYU, she first of all started studying speech and drama, but then she changed her major to elementary education, thinking she could get a job easier. But the Depression hit, and she wasn't able to get a job because they were saving all the teaching jobs for the men who had families to support. So now we come to the courtship period. She met Dad because he was dating another girl, and they came to visit Mother, and things changed. And there are some pictures over here. Excuse me. Not those. Where are the BYU pictures?
Here.
Oh, here. This shows Mother and and Dad's standing on the Mazer building, which you students, see Liz and Beckett and Andrew are all students there right now, and Tyler over here. Tiffany. And Tiffany. Tiffany is John's daughter, or I don't know if you have met Tiffany.
Yes.
Yes, we've met.
We've seen her.
Okay. Anyway, there's the Mazer building. They're standing on the Mazer building.
On the steps over there.
On the steps.
I thought they were on the top too.
And here you can see the steps going up to Upper Campus. Dad is standing here in his freshman football Letterman sweater. And here are the steps going up there in his car that he prized greatly.
Merrill, is that this?
Yes, I wanted to point that out too. This is Dad's Letterman sweater when he was a freshman in football. But we don't know where the letter went. It's disappeared. But unfortunately, he had to quit school because his dad died. So he needed to help his mother on the farm. And so they decided to get married. And so they got married in 1932. And there was still the Depression going on. But these were, this was the wedding gift from Dad, a vanity set, and also this jewelry here. And this shows a medal that Dad got when he was at BYU.
For what that was for, man? What was it for?
It was for broad jumping, wasn't it?
Right.
Broad
He
jumping.
was a good runner.
Yeah.
He had second place in the conference in broad jumping in the conference championship with a jump of a little over 23 and a half feet, I believe. So,
Very good. Well, now we have someone here. Marvin actually can tell us a little bit about when Dad brought Mother to meet the family. And so do you want to take a few minutes and tell us about that?
Thank you. Well, tradition lasted as long as everybody was alive, I think, to meet over at Grandma's house on New Year's Day. And so everybody planned for that particular occasion. Well, the first time that Uncle Merrill brought Aunt Marie, she wasn't at that time, over to this gathering, she was the life of the party, and everybody just had a good time talking to her. And she's a very vivacious person, as you know. And so when she went to leave, when Merrill and Marie, I won't do that, Uncle, I just said, when Merrill and Marie left, Uncle Ray Sabin, most of you don't know him, but he was quite a guy to kid around, you know. And he was serious this time. He says, well, we sure enjoyed having you here, Marie. He said, hope to see more of you later. She says, well, next time I'll wear a bathing suit. You remember that? I was there. Then another kind of nice event took place. And that very summer, after Grandpa died, our family and Grandma, we took Grandma, and I think Naomi Hanson, my cousin, also went with us, and we went down to the southern Utah parks, Bryce Zion and Grand Canyon. Well, when we got to Zion's Canyon, Dad wanted to take a hike, and I wanted to take a hike, and Merrill and Reed were going to take a hike. And they were going, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Zions Park, but you know where this Angel's Landing is? It's a sheer drop of about 2,000 feet or something. it's a long ways down. And Merrill and Marie were going to Angel's Landing, and Dad wanted to go over on the west rim, which was a long hike. And they asked me which one I wanted to go. Oh, I said, I'll go Angel's Landing. Well, Merrill just talked to me like a Dutch uncle, and he says, no, you better go with your dad. I'm sure that he wouldn't want to leave him alone going all that way by himself. And so I went with my dad so they could be together. So they were still courting.
What year was this?
This would have been 1931. 1931. Summer of 31.
So when you first brought Marie to your grandma's?
That would have been January of that same year.
This is the following summer.
Yeah, this is the following summer. But we've always had a lot of fun kidding around. When Aunt Marie and Uncle Merrill moved in our neighborhood, we were just very happy because they were only just 2 houses away. And so we did a lot of things together. We had gardens together. We went out and picked peas together. And Aunt Marie shared her apricots and the grapes. We had irrigation water, and we both had pretty good-sized gardens. Well, then when Uncle Merrill left, we still gardened together, Aunt Marie and I said, well, you don't need to worry about it. I'll take care of the irrigation. But even in the middle of the night, when the turn came in the middle of the night, she was up there with her boots on, coming out and helping me irrigate. That's the kind of person she is. We had some good gardens, didn't we? But then over the years, we've been in the same ward together. We've enjoyed going to ward activities, mistake activities, and just doing things together. It's been fun having these wonderful people in our neighborhood. And we love you dearly, Aunt Marie.
Thanks, Martin. Now, do we have the banyan here? Some of you might like to look at the banyan, which is when Mother was at BYU. So you'll know you younger students know you really come through a BYU family with a lot of heritage in BYU. Now I'm going to turn the time over to Jean to continue on.
Well, I'm not as well organized as Marilyn, but I guess we kind of got them married anyway, and Merrill and Marie, when they were first married, moved in with Grandma Sabin, because Grandpa had just, when did he pass away?
1929.
Oh, 29.
November 29, just a week short of being 60 years old.
Okay, so it was a bit after, but anyway, they moved in Salem and lived with Grandma and Grandpa Sabin there, and that's where Marilyn was born. And one thing that I thought was a sweet tribute was Mother's comments about her mother-in-law. She said she was a wonderful woman and we got along very well. She taught me many things that I haven't had the opportunity of learning from my own mother. And Mother did a lot of sewing to help Grandma. They made a lot of quilt blocks together, and she said it was here that the seeds of the gospel that my mother had planted started to take root within me. As I observed Mother Sabin's patience in all situations, her reluctance to complain, and her unselfishness and willing sacrifice for the gospel, a clear picture of the true concepts of the gospel were painted in my heart. And I think that's a wonderful, sweet tribute to a mother-in-law. And it was there then that Marilyn was born in the family home. And she said Marilyn is a December baby. It was 20 degrees below zero. And they brought the little baby home just before Christmas, and so that would have been a very wonderful Christmas, wouldn't it? And then she talks about hard worker Grandpa was. Merrill was. He was doing the farming and they lived there, I guess, just for about a year. And then they moved back to the Huber family home in Payson, and that's where I was born. And she says,
Jean,
uh-huh.
remember when I met this man that had grown up in Salem, he said that Mother had directed some plays over in Salem while they were living there.
I'd forgotten that. Well, she was quite renowned for the plays that she either acted in or helped direct through the years. Of course, the Depression was really set in strong then, and they rented some farmland and raised tomatoes that they sold to the cannery. And they soon learned that if they would sort the tomatoes and pick out the very best ones, they could get a much better price selling those door to door. And they could get up to 50 cents a bushel for the select tomatoes. And they sold eggs for 10 cents a dozen and milk for 7 cents a quart. And the doctor who delivered me, and I was born in the Payson, in the Huber family home, he charged $35 for the 35. And here, that's the same price we paid for John Enoch in Tona, wasn't it? Years later. But they couldn't pay that much at once, so they paid in $5 installments until they had to pay the bill. Well, we had a happy little life in the old family home there, and then this Mother says in about 1935, I think is when she said we felt a real need for some real special friends their age who had the same high standards and goals. And she said a lot of the young people there, when they would get together, they were doing things, having liquor and doing the kinds of things at parties that they didn't want to do, and they sort of felt lonely. And so they were really excited when one day they noticed a young couple cutting through the backyard and met them and found out that a new family had moved in, and that was Heber and Edith, and their backyards just joined. And so they soon became fast friends and did so many things together. It says that every day they were in one home or the other together, just back and forth. And they had Helen, who was just a little younger than I, and then Boyd came along somewhat later. And
what year was that they met?
Well, 35. 35, I think. Is that what you remember?
Helen was born 36, Boy did 39.
When did you move to Payson?
Become
When
friends,
did you move?
35.
34, I guess.
In 34, so I guess it was just,
34.
right, you were married in 34 and moved, that was your first home then. Okay, so we started just doing a lot of things with their family, and Marilyn and I have a lot of memories, and there's some pictures from her and those pictures.
I think, aren't there some pictures over there?
There should be. Well, here's a picture right here of Edith and Marie on a fishing trip, and look at that. Wow. There's Heber and Merrill, the fish they caught. I don't know if it's the same string or not, but anyway, they did a lot of wonderful, fun things together. Did we find? Is there one Marilyn of the kids? Oh, maybe it's one of these pictures. Well, here's the two sisters in 1937. So this was during those Payson years. Marilyn and Jean. Oh, here's the one with the two Sabin girls and the two Bauer children. And we were just such good friends. We had wonderful times together. The times were hard, and there was the, let's see. Well, I guess we went to Spring Lake and did a lot of picnicking and fun outings together. And then, when the threat of World War II was starting, things and the Depression had been dragging on, a lot of people were trying their luck in California. And so Edith and Heber went to California in 1939, is that right? They moved to Southern California, and they kept in touch, and they invited us down to visit them that next year.
Dad had kind of a bad year that year.
Yeah, the farm had not been done well. It was really, really a hard
But
time.
came down and Heber said, well, if you want a better job, well, I'll get you one.
Yes,
So
and I guess
he
they
went
were
out
just,
and they hired him, and we came back to close up the house that we
that's
stayed.
right. And I remember that trip. I was 6. I had just completed kindergarten at this old Petitnik school, which is where Mother had gone. And Merrill and I guess had first grade there, kindergarten and first grade. And so the Bowers were in Southern California and invited us down to come and look at the situation. So we got in our little old car and drove across that hot desert in the middle of the heat of August, I think it was. And drove down, and they were living in Glendale at the time. And we had been so excited, Marilyn and I, to see our dear friends again, Helen and Boyd. And I mean, Boyd was just tiny then. But, and that long, long drive in the hot car, and we had been looking forward to this trip for so long, and I was just so sure that they were just so excited to see us. And we got there quite late at night, and of course, little Helen and Boyd had gone to bed, been asleep for a few hours by the time we arrived. And I remember Edith had a green footstool, and she went and woke up the children and brought them out, and poor Helen was so tired, and she just sat there on that footstool, and she wasn't even happy to see me. I was so disappointed after that long trip. But the next morning, it was better, and we just had wonderful times. But Daddy did look around and found a job there at Lockheed Aircraft, I think in the custodial department to start with. And so he just started working, and Edith and Mother loaded all 4 children in the car, and we drove back to Payson and closed up the house there and moved down. Found a little apartment in Glendale, and now our son Tom is living in Glendale again, so that's where our son John is starting up his business. So that started a whole new chapter then in California. What a wonderful place it was to grow up. And it's been interesting reading Mother's comments in her journal about the wonderful experiences in California. We only stayed in Glendale for that first year, and then both the Bowers and the Sabins decided they would build a house, and they bought one in Burbank, and Edith bought one in North Hollywood, Edith and Heber. And our house in Burbank was quite close to where Daddy was working at Lockheed. And then the Pearl Harbor came, and they just instigated all these safety precautions because Lockheed was a sure target if the Japanese were going to be so brave as to come to California. And so we used to have air raids, and they set these smudge plots all along the front sidewalks. And we had blackout practices and all that sort of thing. And we just decided we didn't want to be that close to Lockheed anymore. So, but then Daddy decided they would sell the little house that we'd only had for 9 or 10 months, I think, and moved to North Hollywood, at which time they decided to rent a home until they didn't like the idea of the big mortgage that they had signed up for in the little house in Burbank. So we rented, and Mother worked for a while at Lockheed, and they saved up money for 8 years until such a time as they had enough to buy a lot and build a home without having to get a big mortgage. And Daddy did a lot of the work on that home until Ray came down from Washington and helped with the cabinetry and things church. The members of the church were so united there, and it was just like extended family. Daddy was called to serve in the bishopric 2 different times, and Mother served in the primary, and in
Relief Society.
and she was called to be the Relief Society president in about 19.
Isn't there a picture there?
Well, I think there is. Let's see. Well, this is a picture of the bishopric when Daddy was one of the bishoprics he served in, and the wives. Just show you. This is a beautiful, just as a token of friendship. I want you to look at the work, this cut work embroidery that Edith made. I remember when she gave this pair of pillowcases to Mother one Christmas, and I was so impressed. I was old enough at the time to try my hand at a little bit of cross stitching or something, whatever we did as young girls, and realized what a tremendous effort that would have taken. Those teeny tiny fine stitches and with all the cut work in it. There's a book here someplace. Oh, here it is on the history of the North Hollywood steak, and Mother and Daddy read this in a lot of places. Daddy worked out from being in the custodial department to eventually doing cables, splicing cables.
Have John
John,
He was an aircraft plumber, which meant that he was responsible for all the tubing and cabling that was in the plane and for the hydraulics. So they would run the hydraulic pipes that would provide the pressure for whatever hydraulically operated parts there were in the plane.
As I remember, he said it was plumbing and controls. He would connect the controls the pilot would use to the things that they controlled. Is that kind of the idea, the cables and things?
Whether, often those controls were controlled by hydraulics.
And there's just a whole series of different photos of the planes that Lockheed developed. This one was a vertical takeoff fighter, and during my one summer, I had a job 2 different summers working for Lockheed, and this was in a super secret area. I had a badge because I delivered mail and went around to the different departments. So I could go into that area, and Daddy arranged for me to see this thing. It never did take off very, it didn't develop into a very feasible thing, but it was quite a new concept at that time. Probably run past my time, but the associations that they had with the wonderful people in North Hollywood and serving in the church there were just really a choice. And just on Saturday morning, 2 days ago, Merrill and John and I were all in, my John and John Sabin were in the Phoenix area for a Hubert family reunion, and we had a chance to go visit Sister Marie Pratt there, who's living with her daughter, and renew some happy memories of all those choice associations there. What have I left out, Merrill, from that era?
I think you did great.
I think it was kind of fun too. Mother had served as Relief Society president for 5 years at the time Marilyn and Bob were getting married, and it was quite an amazing surprise to the whole ward and state when they came to the wedding reception and saw Mother wearing a maternity smock. That was her announcement. John was on his way. So, John, we'll let you take over, and here's the Cub Scout.
Well, I'm supposed to take from the Cub Scout era on. And when I was about 9 years old, Mother became my second Cub Scout leader. A dear friend, Ethel Salitos, was the first one, and Mom was the assistant, and then it sort of switched, and Mom became the Cub Scout leader. And we would have Cub Scouts at our house in the backyard and we had a screened-in patio. And of course, we did many wonderful projects. I remember we had to do a paperweight, and we did a cracked marble paperweight where we heated up the marbles in the boiling water, and then we poured them into the icy water, and they all cracked, and then we glued them together and made paperweights. And we also made hangers, that had clips on them, so you could hang your whole uniform on them, and they were braided together. It was a wood piece in the center of the hanger with clips, and they were braided together with blue and gold braiding. And these sorts of things. And so Mother was Cub Scout leader for a number of years, and she also helped me and got me involved with the paper route because she had delivered papers when she was young, and I guess she figured that was important for me to do. Okay, that was the Cub Scout bandana, and there's the hat. So those are the Cub Scout kinds of things. Then, when I was 11, Dad had looked forward to retiring. His back had been hurting, and they had had surgery on his back, and he was much better, but he had decided that he wanted to take early retirement from Lockheed, and so he retired when he was just over 60 years old. And they, as Merrill had mentioned, came up one summer, and they found a lot that was just 2 houses away from Marvin and Sylvia. And they bought the lot, and then later on found a builder and made all of the decisions on how to build this house in a 2-week vacation period. Hired the contractor, determined all the colors and everything like that, went back to California for a year, and didn't see it until it was finished and they were ready to move in. So that was either tremendously courageous or very lucky. I don't know. Yeah, and Marvin and Sylvia watched it and made sure it was done right. But that was great. When we moved up, I was 12 years old, and of course, Marilyn and Jean were already married. We haven't talked much about them getting married, but Marilyn, of course, was married right when I was on the way. And Jean's marriage was my earliest childhood memory because I remember wearing my overalls, and I was just under 3 years old, and I wore my overalls, my Engineer Bill overalls, because Engineer Bill had a television show. He had a train, and it was exciting. I had my Engineer Bill overalls as John came to take Jean away, and I never saw her again. I remember crying at the window as they walked away. My earliest childhood memory, I was just almost 3 years old. But when we moved to Orem, Marvin was my baseball coach, and my dad assisted him, and Mom would, make treats for the team at times. But we had a great team. Marvin had us so that we didn't lose a single game during the regular season except one in which we were ahead 24-1, I believe. And then we made a substitution error and put too many 12-year-olds in the outfield in the last inning so everyone could play, and the other team demanded that we forfeit. So we had to forfeit that game. It was the only game we lost that season.
That year we won all city.
That's right. We won all city. We won the all-city tournament. We went to the state tournament, and we won our first 2 games, and we lost 2.
Didn't have no more pitching.
Well, that's because I pitched the last game that we won. Then moving on from there, Mom and Dad enjoyed very much the companionship of Marvin and Marvin's father, and they would go fishing quite often. Also, I remember a lot of hunting trips that they would take. And at times, Bob would join us with Robert and Richard and some of the other people, and we would go up in the mountains and go hunting and things like that. So Dad was always one to make sure that we had those kinds of experiences. And Mom was very good at supporting us and washing all the dirty clothes when they came back
And sending pies and stuff.
and sending pies and things like that. Mother, when you read her journal, you realize that she held just about every position that a woman could hold in the church. She was Relief Society president, she was in the State Relief Society, she was in the state primary, she was in the primary. When we moved to Utah, she also held a number of positions on the state level as well as on the ward level, often in the Relief Society or in the Sunday school. And she always had been involved with service. It was interesting as I read her journal, however, that she commented that she was less active in Utah than in California, and you understood what less active meant that there were more people to have church callings, so she only had 1 or 2 church callings instead of sometimes 3 or 4. And that meant that she was less active in the church. And so she always was very active in doing a lot of things. One of the great trials, I think, occurred, besides having me and watching me, I was a trial, but I think one of the great trials that she's overcome, and she's been blessed and has received blessings, that she would never have to fear doctors or lawyers. And, you know, she has had the ability to overcome cancer. And I remember in 1973, when we found out that Mom was diagnosed with malignant cancer, and that it had spread and metastasized. I was confident that, you know, she would not be long with us. And the doctors weren't particularly encouraging. But as you can tell, here she is today, and she has done very well and has overcome that, and has done it very quickly. Some of you may know that she's broken her hip a couple of times recently, and is back up and at it here in a very, very short period of time. So she's got remarkable recuperative powers. One of the other things that was very interesting is that as you read what she's written, she's been very concerned about service and about, you know, working hard and helping others. And she's always been a very hard worker and has accomplished a lot, and has sort of set a standard for all of her descendants to, you know, accomplish a lot and to do things. And she's been proud of her children. You know, she's been very proud of both Jean and Merrill and their accomplishments at school, because they were able to be the first ones that completed school. Both Mom and Dad didn't finish college. Mom got her teaching certificate, but was never able to teach, but wasn't able to finish college. And yet, I think all of her children finished college. And that was a very important thing for her. And as time has gone on, I know one of the great trials for Mom, when you read her journal, was when my father passed away. And it's documented almost day by day. She was very, very lonely. And I know she loved Dad very much. But she continued on. And she supported our lawn business. She took all of our calls. If you read her journal, she says she soothed a lot of angry customers. I didn't know we had any angry customers. So she must have done a good job, because we never knew we had any angry customers, and according to her journal, she had to soothe a lot of them. So that was a positive thing. And they were very supportive as we had our lawn business, and we turned the home phone into a business phone, and people calling all sorts of time to schedule this and do that. And she was very helpful and would do all those sorts of things. And I think she's taking great joy in her grandchildren. And all of you need to understand that. As you read her journal, she's writing, well, it's so-and-so's birthday today. Or so-and-so just brought so-and-so, who later becomes the spouse. Or so-and-so had a child today. And she's always had a lot of pride in her grandchildren and what they've accomplished. So, Mother has done a lot and has worked hard and has built a lifetime of friendships. And I think it's a great tribute to you, Mother, that all of these people would like to be here with you, to support you as you reach this milestone in your life, and to wish you, of course, happiness and joy going forward. And I want you all to know that I love my mother very much, and I appreciate your support of her.
Like this way, please.
Wonderful.
Like a press conference.
Sing. Who's our musician here? Okay.
Oh, we've got a family full of musicians here.
Becky, do you want to lead the song? Did you want to try to blow it or stop it with this?
We have a snuffer. Mother always got teased about worrying about germs, and so her sister gave her a candle snuffer once.
I know blowing on the cake.
Just put it right Just to get your permission.
Yeah. Well, they can come and serve us now, I guess. They said,
Tiffany, they're coming, right?
we might make I'll start it. Oldest grandchild in each of our families share a memory,
It's here.
and then we'll open it up to anybody else that wants to.
Hey, Matt, you're probably qualified for the oldest. That's scary.
Are you one of the Nancy? I am Nancy. How are you?
He's 6 months older. Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
I'll never forget him. We'll never let him forget him.
But not quite as wide, is that right now? I'm on tape. Well, I only have one memory of grandmother Sabin before they moved up to Utah. And that was, they moved here when I was about 10, so it was probably a couple of years before that when they were up here to visit, so I must have been 7 or 8. But while they were here, they made a point to do something, special with each grandchild. I think the Brokers were living in Idaho at that time. Maybe it was Tonga, I'm not sure. But at any rate, this was just our family. And so they took Robert up to Lagoon, and then they took Richard, I forget exactly where, maybe he went with them and Robert. And then by the time they got to me, they were, I think, a little tired, so they took me to church. That's my first memory. Then when they moved here, I was 9 or 10, and so most of my growing years were heavily involved with John and Grandpa Sabin, and doing a lot of things together with them. The 3 boys and John, we used to ride off the top of their hill down into the river bottoms and go trap pollywogs and frogs and the like. Grandma's presence was always very firm in supporting any of those activities that we did. She was a great mother for John. And I think that's probably all I have to say. I think my 4 minutes are up. So my memories of Grandma Sabin during those years were just one of always total support for the things that were going on. And she was a great lady.
earliest memory is before we went to Tonga, we went to visit Grandma and Grandpa and John in California, we went to Disneyland. And we had a great time, and I had a few memories there, but I just remember how fun it was to be at Grandma's house in California as a little girl. We had a good time, but then we went to Tonga, and so the next memory I have of Grandma is when we were ready to come home from there, Grandma, Grandpa, and John came down, and they took myself and Liz and Merrill, the three of us. We rode a ship home from Tonga to Hawaii. We had a great time. John and I we had our butt of the ship. Grandma she was very good that way. She knew where we were. We had to report in, but she was willing to let us kind of go and do what we wanted to do. But the last night before we pulled into Hawaii, the seas were kind of rough, and I got seasick, and I still remember that feeling awfully sick, and I think Liz did as well. And Grandma was up a lot, helping to take care of us about that. I don't know if you remember that, John, but the next morning we landed in Hawaii, spent a day or two with her sister, Deanna, and her husband Paul, and then flew here to Salt Lake and drove down to their house in Orem. We hadn't seen that house yet because they moved while we were gone. And just a day or two later is when we watched man's landing on the moon in their basement, the TV console that they had there. And I remember that was just a significant event. I was 11, not quite 11, I was 10, almost 11 years old. But then kind of through our teenage years, my memories of Grandma and Grandpa and John, I mean, they were all together. Everywhere they went, they were together. It seemed like they'd come and stay in Idaho. They'd help out, I suppose sometimes in conjunction with the new baby being born into the family, and other times just, when fix-it jobs needed to be done. They showed up and they stayed for a week or two.
They would come up quite often and just help me.
And this is kind of a memory of Grandpa, but he'd go sit out in the car late at night, and sometimes it was over the holidays in the winter in Idaho, which was not very pleasant to be outside at night, and he would turn on the car radio because they pick up KSL radio and listen to BYU basketball games. And I'd go out there and sit with him and listen to those. So he was such a sports fan, and Grandma, I don't think she had a whole lot of interest in it, but she was very, again, supportive of that and encouraging of his interests in things. Then one memory too, probably, I should say a trait that I feel like I've inherited from Grandma. We were staying at their house in Orem. I was a teenager. I can't tell you exactly how old, but we were baking a cake, and we mixed up the cake, and I scraped it out into the pan and put the bowl that we mixed up in the sink. She said, "Oh no, we need to scrape it out." I said, "I did." And he said, "No." So she got the rubber scraper, scraped it out till it was clean. I mean, I kind of was planning on licking her. And she told me, she said, "I've always thought whoever invented the rubber scraper should be sainted." and the trait that I picked up for that is one of the things that I struggle with is the idea of waste. And I think a lot of that has just come through years of association with Grandma, that I really have a great respect for utilizing things to their fullest and don't have a lot of tolerance for waste. My husband says I keep making things because of that, but I appreciate that quality that I've learned from Grandma. So,
Remember the boxes that Dad made for you girls that you
The play
brought
boxes,
from
yeah.
the play boxes?
Years ago.
I still have it. I still use the headboard that Grandpa made for, bed headboard. Still use that.
Hey, Tiffany?
Okay, well, I don't remember before they moved from California. I don't even remember when Grandpa Sabin was around. That was before I was around. But I remember, well, I'm not sure if I remember doing this when I was 2 or if I remember doing it a little bit later when we would come visit Grandma Sabin on trips when I was about 5 or 6. But I would get up in the morning and I would stick my finger under Grandma's door and I would wiggle my fingers. And she would stick her fingers back out and wiggle and I would just giggle. And she, I don't know. But things as a little girl. And I remember it didn't seem to matter what time I got up in the morning. Grandma had always been up for hours in the garden or doing irrigation or something. And I would think that after and come out and she would show me how to pick the strawberries or show me the different things she had growing. And I was always very curious about that. I remember something that I was reminded of earlier today when we saw some things in Aunt Merrill's basement. When I was about 5 or 6, I got a little loom that I would weave things on with yarn. And I remember I wanted to give my very best one to someone really special. And I hadn't remembered who I gave it to. Today when I was in Aunt Merrill's basement, I found it. So I gave it to Grandma Sabin. I worked very hard on this. And I actually remember coming back. It must have been, we came back for a trip when we were living in Orlando, which would have been like 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. And I remember now seeing this and thinking, why on earth did she still have that? But it was it was out on display under a plant or something. So she really, you could always feel the love she had for us as her keeping something that ugly simply because I made it. I made lots.
Now, I wonder if we should see if they're not waiting for us to put time.
Gene wanted me to take this thing. We just got a call from Vicky. Some of you know that their little boy was born with a problem in his heart. And they just took him into the primary children's hospital reception, and she just called and said that it's not anything any of the doctors have seen before, so they're calling counseling cardiac surgeons or something next week. They said it's not in human nature. If there's 12 of them, then they're going to get together and decide what to do. They said it'll be all right. Some problem the veins that go to the heart, the connection between the lung and the heart is wrong. So it's got to be fixed. So that's the answer. They said that they feel all right about them going back to Wyoming for a week or two, and then when they decide what doctor or what hospital or the United States goes,
Happy done reading her duck